Why, hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the GSL-English Podcast, a podcast designed to immerse you in the English language in a relaxed and natural way. My name is, of course, Gideon, and thank you so much for joining me again. If you are listening to this on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m., then very well done. Thank you for watching or listening as soon as it is released, but if you're listening a little bit later in the week, then I'll let that slip. That's okay. But just thank you for joining me again. And as I said, these podcasts are just designed to help you listen to the English language in a natural way. And in this week's episode, we do that with a very special guest. It was my absolute pleasure to have a conversation with Chris from Instant English UK, and it really was a great chat. We talk about a wide variety of different things, from traveling around the world and experiences that have been had whilst doing that. Also, we talk about Chris's approach to teaching English, particularly in such a creative way that sparks curiosity, and we discuss that a little bit more, how to make learning and teaching English fun. Does it always have to be so serious? So it is a really interesting topic. And of course, in between, we talk about very random things, but you will enjoy this conversation. So I do encourage, as always, sit back, relax, grab a cup of tea or whatever drink floats your boat, get comfortable, and enjoy my conversation with Chris. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks a lot for having me. Appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you. You're a busy man, taking the time to come and chat to me on this little podcast. That means a lot.
No worries. Yeah, it's good. I like doing podcasts. I used to have one myself, but they are very hard to maintain. But it's a lot of fun.
It is, yeah, and it's kind of. I always go into it thinking it's a bit easier than it is, but it's quite a bit of work, isn't it? It's trying to get everything together naturally and different things like that. But whereabouts in the world are you at the moment?
Right now, well, I was in Cordoba in Argentina for about a month. I have some friends there, so I was staying with them. And then I assumed that I wouldn't like as much as I did, so I booked another flight, because when you enter Argentina, I think they're trying to punish us for previous wars, but you have to book a flight to enter the country. You can't have a sort of open schedule. You have to kind of have some sort of return booked.
Right.
So I got to the flight and they were like, "Do you have anything to leave?" And I was like, "No." So I was like, "Okay, I'll book something." And then the thing I booked was Rio. So now I'm in Rio in Brazil, and it's lovely. I've been here less than 24 hours, but based on my little wander this morning, it is amazing. It's really nice, yeah.
I've always wanted to go to Argentina. Just one of those things. It's always been on my list, but I've never just got around to going. What was it that you like about it so much?
I think for me, it's hard to say. For me, I live in Barcelona normally, and for some strange reason, all the Argentinians I meet are from Cordoba, and they're just the nicest people. So when I went there, they're nice in Barcelona, but then when I went there the other day when I went there for the month, everyone's just so nice, and it's nice. It's like a nice mix of trying to integrate you into everything and be really friendly and welcoming and kind. But at the same time, they want you to kind of make fun of them. They want you to kind of step over the limit, let's say, and make fun of them, take the piss, really. So it is really nice. It's kind of a nice balance of you're welcome, but at the same time, feel free to make fun of me.
Yeah. And I guess that's kind of, as British people, you can kind of relate to that, because that's how you kind of connect with people, isn't it? It's making fun and jokes and banter. That's kind of how you connect.
Yeah, I think it's like British people, but just a little bit better because they're warmer naturally. So it's I think English people are very polite and very kind, but they're they're kind of warm as well. So it's you've got the best of both worlds. But yeah, there's also the countryside's amazing
Oh,
in
really?
that part of. Yeah, I went there the other day I went to the country house in San Clemente, I think it's called, like outside Cordoba, and it's like rivers everywhere. You can go swimming.
Wow.
It wasn't the warmest because they're kind of going into autumn,
Wow.
but yeah, it was great. I went and did a bit of swimming in the river, had a barbecue. The
Oh,
meat just keeps coming. It's
yeah.
lovely. It's a lovely,
Yeah.
nice experience.
Wow. So
Yeah,
you
you
had
should definitely
to,
go.
yeah, do you know, it's one of those places that I've kind of worked with people from there, and I've always wanted to go. And that's true, actually. Now I'm thinking about it. Any kind of Argentinian I've worked with or spoken to, they're always like, come. And I genuinely think they actually mean it. You know, come to my house. I'll feed you. I'll look after you. So there is that kind of
Yeah,
genuine.
that I am proof that's true. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
literally, I think, for example, the first week I was there, I think I spent about $20 because I was just going from
Yeah.
staying at my friend's house and then going to his parents' house, which is like the next block or couple of blocks over,
Right.
and they're just feeding me. And it's great. I feel terrible. You eating all your food and using all your electricity, but yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, it's a really good experience. And I've been to Buenos Aires as well, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I went there in November last year, but also I went there the weekend before last.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's really cool. It's a really beautiful city, lots going on, nice atmosphere. They're not as friendly but then it's a capital city,
It's a
but
city, isn't
they're
it?
not
Yeah.
they're not as friendly, but there's a lot more going on. It's really exciting.
Wow.
So you should definitely visit there as well.
So
Really
you're
cool.
really traveling quite a bit at the moment. Like you're going around and I don't know, just seeing the world.
Yeah, I've been traveling since the age of 18, really. I
Right.
remember when I was 18, I booked a interrail around Europe,
Oh,
and I
okay.
did that for like 2 months, and I just kind of caught the bug, and then I did it the year after again, interrail, and then the year after that, my friends and I, we bought a car, and we
Yep.
tried to drive from Brighton, or yeah, it was from Brighton. Like we say London, but it was more like Brighton,
Yeah.
to Istanbul.
Oh,
So we
wow.
tried to yeah, we went, it was a lot of like, I kind of, to go off a little bit on that
Yeah.
story, I found a book about wild swimming in France. And
Right.
then I wanted to kind of explore all those places and just sort of camp and swim in these crazy rivers and
Wow.
waterfalls and that kind of thing. And then it was kind of like, well, why don't we just try and extend it and get to Istanbul? So we didn't quite make it. We had a crash
Oh, no.
in Macedonia.
That's the place. Wow.
Yeah. So that was after about a month. We crashed in Macedonia. My friend was like overtaking,
Oh, no.
and obviously our car was it right-hand drive? I'm getting confused now.
Yeah, I think
What's
theirs would be if ours are right hand
there's
drive. So theirs would
there's
be
the
left
left.
hand. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So he's trying to overtake
No.
on the other side of the road, and then he couldn't see. So like I'm on the passenger side, and I suppose I should be telling him like, okay, now you can go. But I was 21 and stupid, so I was just like
Yeah.
relaxing,
Just
doing the
chilling.
music,
Just chilling. Yeah.
and he was overtaking, and then he overtook on a bend, and then we just had a head on
Oh,
luckily with a Fiat 500. So we were like, everyone was okay.
mm.
Their car was unfortunately damaged, but everyone was safe. Um, and then my friend had to go to court the next day, and
Because of the crash.
yeah, because it was
Oh.
dangerous driving. So they took
Oh.
his passport. He had to go to court. And the strange thing was that the police arrived the next day at court, and they forgot all the documents. So the judge was like, "You can leave."
Oh, wow.
So it's weird. It was a weird experience. He said you could leave, but he said also you have 24 hours to leave Macedonia. You cannot be here. So
Okay.
I don't know what the window of opportunity to leave was for. Maybe they could arrest us again,
Yeah.
or
So you just took that
so
opportunity and thought, right, well, let's get out of here and
yeah. I mean, we were like, well, we better start driving home. So we basically drove for 3 day, maybe 2 days straight. I did drive. I didn't have a license at the time, but I was like passenger. My friends were just sleeping. One was sleeping at the back, and the other one was driving. And then it was like just back and forth all the way
wow.
through Switzerland, Germany, and then finally got back. And then we sold the car for scrap metal. in the end.
So you were traveling for a month doing that, like just road tripping across Europe and across the.
Yeah, that was about a month. Yeah, maybe 6 weeks. And then I finished university that year, and I looked for jobs around the world,
Yeah.
literally everywhere. I applied for a job in Iraq because the money was really good. It was like 80,000 per year, but you had to have a bodyguard.
Oh.
Excuse me. And eventually I had it down to three countries: Argentina. Sorry, it's a very long-winded story.
No, keep going. I'm enjoying it.
Argentina, Madrid, Tokyo. Argentina was my dream, but they were basically a bit sketchy. They were like, come to Argentina, you have 2 weeks training unpaid, and then we'll see if you have a job.
Yeah.
Also, there's no visa. You have to visa hop. So when you run out, you have to go to Chile or something, come back. And then I was like 23 or 22. And I was like, that doesn't sound great. So eventually I just flipped the coin between Tokyo and Madrid. And Tokyo won. So I went to Tokyo, and then I haven't really left. I haven't really stopped since then. I've been back for little stints and stuff in the UK, but that's it.
So you actually lived in Tokyo for some time?
Lived there for 3 years, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So started teaching IELTS basically.
Yeah.
So that was really good. I was only supposed to go there for 1 year, cash out all the money and then go to Argentina, but it didn't happen. I kind of got settled and got a girlfriend, and I had a good group of friends, and then it was like, this is really nice. I'll stay.
Wow. So was that like always your kind of goal, just growing up thinking, I just want to live in different countries, explore the world? Was that always the goal, or did it just kind of naturally end up happening that way?
Yeah, I think naively, my dream was I'm just going to teach forever in little academies around the world and keep hopping around, and I'll be like this cool, like foreign guy.
Yeah.
But then
mysterious.
I realized when you get to like 30 or like late 20s, you're like, quite nice to have more money and relax and stuff. So
I value stability now.
Yeah, it's like why would I want 1 week in Pakistan, another week in I don't know, wherever, Thailand. It's just like it's not as stress-free as it sounds. So so now I'm settled in Barcelona.
Wow.
However, I am kind of considering maybe 6 months in Spain, 6 months Argentina.
Wow.
Summer to summer, but I don't know. It's just an idea. But
like the thing is, I guess if you're in a position where that is possible, what an incredible kind of position to be in. And living in a country is so different, isn't it, to visiting? You as you've experienced.
I think that's the thing people often say, like, not just for me, but anyone who has a remote job now. It's like, why be just in one place? Like, why, I'm just in Barcelona, which is again lovely, but like, I don't have to be there. So why am I in my room working when I can just grab my laptop and go anywhere? So I don't know. I feel like I'm missing out if I don't.
I know exactly what you mean. And I think especially while, life can take turns, can't it? While, health allows it, as well as work and that.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not see the world and just experience different cultures and enjoy it?
That's true. Yeah. Where are you based?
So, currently I'm back with my parents in the just outside of London in Kent.
Nice.
We were living in Italy last year.
Oh, cool.
But with some visa kind of issues, where we're back here at the moment, and we were living in the Dominican Republic.
Right.
We lived there. Actually, I met my wife there, and we lived there for 4 years. And then
is that what, you were working in a school or something, or how did you get to
so it's kind of my story's crazy. The only reason really I moved out there and got into teaching was because I met my wife. She's from Manchester, but we met on the beach in Dominican Republic. And then kind of really long story short, I ended up moving out there, but she was an English teacher at the time. So I kind of just started teaching a little bit, kind of those, just talking to people in English, getting paid for it, those kind of platforms. And then I just kind of really enjoyed it. And then COVID hit, I needed work. So just kind of stuck with that.
But how do you get to stay in Dominican Republic in terms of visas and stuff? Like, they were just like, it's cool, don't worry about it.
Yeah, they're a lot more chilled. like a lot more chilled. There was kind of a bit of a sketchy time where we had to every 3 months cross the border into Haiti and back.
Right.
So that's always quite interesting. But then eventually they kind of changed the system, so we were able to get temporary residency. So as long as we weren't earning money or taking money from Dominicans, all of our money was coming from elsewhere, we can live there.
Wow, cool.
It was great. Great place to live. Yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Sounds quite nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being on the beach.
Yeah. I wake up every day and think, what am I doing here? Why? It's rainy, it's cold, I'm done. I shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I know how that feels. Yeah. It's hard. I mean, there are some benefits. I can't think of them right now, but
no, if you think really hard, you can get some. No, I mean,
you can find some.
Yeah. I mean, when we first came back, we were like, oh, I can go to the shops. Finally, I can go to the cinema. I don't know. It's something really weird that I was really excited about that I never liked when living here, but I just got this urge to go bowling. So for like years, I was just craving going bowling. I did it once and got it out my system back in England, and that was it.
I can go back now.
Yeah, that's all I needed. But yeah, okay. So kind of course, you said like, teaching has allowed you to travel. Was that always what you wanted to do, to teach English, or was it because kind of traveling it lends itself to that, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I think the main, if I try and put it if I tried to put it into an order, the main thing was to travel forever and never go back to the UK. But then also I do like reading. I did like reading at the time. I studied literature at university, so
okay.
It was always something that like I liked, but I just didn't know how I could do it, I suppose. And it just came about because I had a friend whose sister was teaching abroad. She was teaching in Sevilla, so it's kind of like I was like, oh well, maybe I could do the same. Because there was a few things in my mind, like I wanted to be a screenwriter, or I wanted to do do like short stories or something like that. So I was kind of like floating ideas, or a journalist or something. So it just kind of happened that I fell into teaching really, and I quite liked it because it feels like a performance every time, especially when I used to do it face to face. It feels like you have an hour or 50 minutes of these people's time, and you have to perform in some way, right? I know obviously you're giving information, you're giving knowledge, but also I want it to be entertaining. So I quite like that creative element of it. Like, how can I take this incredibly boring grammar exercise about articles and make it, fairly interesting, make it a bit quirky or weird, so people are like, oh yeah, let's play this game, or let's try and interact with this teacher because it's fun.
And that's what makes you resonate with a teacher, isn't it? I think of, the teachers that I liked at school. It's the ones that weren't just imparting knowledge. It was the ones that were a little bit wacky, or the ones that kind of got you doing stuff that you weren't expecting. You know what I mean? That's what you remember.
Yeah. I remember specifically a teacher I had in college, which in the UK is like between 16 to 18. And he was my literature teacher. And whenever we weren't listening, for example, we would like sort of start to nod off. He would like go into different accents. So like it would just be the craziest experience. He would just be like, yeah, man, I'm from Jamaica. And then it's a terrible Jamaican accent, but he would just go into an Australian accent or an Indian accent or whatever, and just teach the whole class in that accent, because it would just perk people up, like, what's going on? And then you would listen. So I really liked, that kind of style of just going a bit off the wall and just, doing what you want, rather than, I think that's kind of why I just sort of strayed away from anything mathematics related. Like, all that stuff was not for me, because it's like, it's all very set.
Fixed.
I kind of I like to sort of play with it, like the language, or I like to make stuff up. And
I think with English as well, it's such a dynamic thing, isn't it? I think compared to perhaps other topics, it's so dynamic, and you can do so much with it. And I guess, you can see that from kind of your social media and Instagram and YouTube. There is that creative element to it. So that, I guess, for teaching and your social media, that was your creative kind of outlet that you wanted
with social media.
Was that kind of, was that kind of your goal with the social media?
Yeah, I think for me, like I've had a few arguments over the years with certain teachers or like more like teachers because I've done a few conferences and a few of the let's say boomers in the room have been like, but people don't learn from this, and what can they learn from a 30-second video? And it's just that for me, I don't really see what I'm doing as like a class. I don't see myself as a textbook. I kind of see it as like a, an advert for English as a language, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
like I want to grab people's attention that probably have studied some English and they've kind of given up over time, and they're kind of like, oh, I know some, and one day I'll take a lesson, and I want to sort of grab their attention and be like, hey, look at this weird video. I'm teaching you phrasal verbs from the bathroom, like, or I'm upside down explaining, whatever it could be. So that's kind of my idea of like making it really bold and engaging and weird. So people are like, yeah, I'll take a class actually. So I just see myself as a filter, that the videos are a filter to something else, not like the finished thing. But a lot of people I've spoken to, well, not a lot, some people I've spoken to have kind of been against it because it's like you can't learn anything from YouTube or you can't learn something from Instagram. It's like, well, yeah, that is true to some degree, but if you want to study from a textbook, go get a textbook. It's not why
Exactly.
it's a different form of media, right? So why take that same thing? So yeah, I try and like if I ever make a video about pronunciation, I never ever explain what the words mean because I don't want to put information in the video where it's like like you have all the words, and so I just keep it as simple as possible. If I'm explaining the vocabulary, I only explain the vocabulary. I don't do the pronunciation, or I don't cross over between the different skills, because that should, for me, drive the curiosity, which helps you to learn. So like I want to spark a conversation rather than just give you all the information and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm done, because it's just in there and out the other side, right? So so I get quite heated about that one. I just hate the fact that people can't understand that not everything has to be set like
Exactly.
spoon-fed, like you don't have to just kind of be told everything. Maybe just try and look for the answer yourself. Like, oh, what does that word mean? Okay, I'll Google it. And the process of Googling it helps you to learn it.
Exactly. And that really comes across in your content. You know what I mean? It's this idea of sparking interest,
Yeah,
and it's true. And I think any content that can create an interest, particularly in something like the English language, someone goes, oh yeah, do you know what? I'm going to look into that. Or what does that word mean? I'm going to see it. And as you said, it's almost like kind of that social media presence is the first step, like kind of igniting that curiosity, and then the rest goes on. But I do agree with you that it's such a dated way of thinking, massively dated way of thinking, to if you're not in front of a teacher reading from a textbook, you're not learning. It's times have moved on, particularly when it comes to education.
Do you speak another language?
This is a really hot topic. I'm still learning Spanish, trying, but slowly.
I'm just curious because for me, for example, this kind of idea of like keeping things open and whenever I teach something, to teach one thing and then have the student or kind of create 10 questions in the student's mind, because it always happens to me in Spanish where I would always remember the bad words or words that were a little bit suggestive
on the edge,
because because I would always, someone would tell me it and I'll be like, okay, I don't really understand what it means. Like in Spanish you have boludo, in Argentinian Spanish, still not really sure what it means, to be honest, like 100%, but it's like that idea of like, oh my God, what does it mean? And then I'm like curious and I'm like, okay, maybe I can find out, maybe I can Google something, or maybe I can look at a movie, or and that kind of thing. That word is stuck with me rather than a very simple one like, I don't know, like water, like there's no story behind it, so it's not easy to remember, in my opinion. So that kind of, that's where I got the idea of like, I want people to kind of think about the word more rather than like, this is water, and it's done. I want to kind of create that curiosity so people will remember it. That's how I feel I learn. So
that's really interesting. Yeah, just trying to create that, I guess, you create that curiosity, then someone looks at it and then they connect it with something in their life. For example, I guess there's words that we connect with in different ways. But as long as you've got that personal connection, you're much more likely to remember it and start using it.
That's how I feel. Yeah, if you've got a story behind it, it sticks. You know, you remember that moment when that person told you, or like even when I make mistakes, I tell students all the time, you know, please make a mistake because trust me, you will remember that. I remember, for example, the difference between onion and horse now for the rest of my life because in Spanish I mixed them up when I went to Subway one time in Peru, and I was like, I don't want any. I was saying, oh, no quiero caballo, and they're like, there's no horse here, caballo.
You don't
like
need to
horse.
worry about that.
And I was like, no, 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 seriously, no caballo. No, no,
Yeah.
no caballo. And he's like, honestly, no problem.
Yeah.
And then there was like a queue forming. But, you know, this whole thing happened. And now I always remember cebolla, caballo, like easily because I have that story of like, well, the embarrassment more than anything. But
and that's quite, that is an interesting thing because I think sometimes I do this actually, I'll be honest, I'm guilty of this when I'm learning or trying to speak Spanish. As soon as I go to a second language, or I've noticed other people, perhaps their second language is English, we go super serious. And everything is, you know, very, very serious. We can't make mistakes, you know, it has to be perfect. And I think sometimes that puts so much pressure on learning a language, it takes the joy out of it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be fun, right? That's the whole point of it. I think it's, you know, for me, the hardest thing is to motivate people when they're not too bothered about learning a language. Just like, well, if you don't enjoy it, because there are going to be more times when you hit that wall of like, you know, I want to give up. And how do you power through? Well, if you enjoy it, then you just you do something else. I don't know. For me, I love watching movies in Spanish or listening to music in Spanish. So when I'm studying something and it's hard, I can just switch off and watch a YouTube video and I won't understand everything. I'm not learning as much as I would if I studied, you know, from a textbook, but at least I'm still in the process, you know, whereas if you don't enjoy it and then that brick wall comes and you hit it, it's like, well, okay, I can't do it. And then you give up. And then 10 years later, you're like, oh, why did I do that?
Yeah, exactly. And I think you've got to be okay to laugh at yourself. Like you said, kind of with that mistake with onion and horse. If you, for some, if you had the wrong kind of mindset, that could destroy you. You know, that whole experience, it could, but actually just thinking, you know, I messed up. It's okay, you know.
True, yeah. I mean, I did feel very embarrassed, but that's not the only time. So it wasn't the most embarrassing thing for me in Spanish, so it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can never go back to that establishment, but it's.
Oh, yeah. I shouldn't eat Subway anyway. It's terrible for you. That's what I tell myself.
Yeah, exactly. So, kind of course, social media, I really do like your approach on it and kind of congratulations on your success and everything with that. I know you've probably spoken about this 1,000 times, but where did it start? Was it? I know. Do you know what? Before this, I thought to myself, Gid, don't ask that question. It's happened.
Here we are.
It's happened, okay? So
no, it's fine. It was a pandemic, baby. So I was in Peru working in an English school called Britannico. So they needed the Britannico in there.
There you go.
And they basically just closed the doors one day. Like the announcement came. I remember, I think I was in my house or in my flat, and I think it was a Friday, and then the government were like, Sunday,
oh wow,
you know, midnight going into Monday, we're going into lockdown. And it wasn't even that bad at the time. I think, you know, a few hundred cases. But the school closed for 2 weeks, and they were like, yeah, don't come in for 2 weeks, Chris. There's no classes because they didn't have any. It wasn't sort of tech. Like there was no laptops in the school or nothing like that. So it was very much a room, a chalkboard, a textbook, and, you know, away you go. So when they went into lockdown, it was like, well, how do we transfer over? You know, remote classes were not a thing, basically. So they said, don't come in for 2 weeks. And I was like, ooh, 2 week holiday.
There was that time, wasn't there? Where it's like, yes.
I'm gonna do something productive. Or watch Netflix.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that turned into a month, and then a month turned into 3 months, and then I was like, they're not going to open again. So I rang the embassy. I didn't ring the embassy. No, there was no. It was a strange time where there were no phone calls. Well, from my experience in that moment, everything was Facebook. So they're like, I had to message the British
Oh wow.
Embassy in Lima on Facebook, and had a bit of a back and forth, for about a week. And they were like, "Well, sorry, all the flights have gone now." Like there was
Mm.
like three flights, I think, but that was like the first week. But I
Oh,
stayed because I thought, oh, wow, it will open up again.
yeah, right.
And they were like, "Speak to the French." So I actually got the number for the French, and they wouldn't speak to me in English.
Mm.
Oh, so I was like, okay, well, I do not speak French, so goodbye. And then I rang the Spanish embassy, and I Facebooked them, and they were like, only Spanish people at the moment.
Oh
And
wow.
eventually, after 8 months, I got through to the Dutch embassy, and they were like, "Yeah, of course you can fly with us. Just give us €1,000, and you
Mm.
can come." So in that time, while I was stuck from March to October, the end of October, I started making videos on TikTok just for fun, like
Mm.
um, teaching stuff. They're still on there now. They're terrible, so I leave them on there just so I can go back and
Just
see how
humble
bad I was.
yourself.
Oh yeah, that's honestly
Yeah.
terrible.
I think
Um,
we've all been there. We've all been there.
the worst ones was I did one for YouTube as well, but I had to delete it because it was horrendous. But so I just started making videos, and then it kind of snowballed because also I was already a mini celebrity in my school in Lima because there were there were about I think the school per day had about 11,000 students,
Oh, okay.
not at the same time, but like from
Yeah, yeah.
7 a.m. until 11 p.m. And I was the only foreign teacher. Everyone else was
Oh.
Peruvian, but they spoke English. So
Mm.
when I would go from class to class, people would like take photos with me and stuff.
Oh,
So
really? Wow.
yeah, because they've never, I mean, this was kind of, it wasn't like in the fanciest area of Lima. It was
Mm.
kind of fairly, like, it depended. My the school was quite interestingly placed because there were two neighborhoods behind it which were really poor, and the one in front of it was quite well off. So
Mm.
people that would go to the class it was a mix of like poor people who would tell me that they have to walk past drug dealers in the morning and stuff.
Oh,
Like it's
wow.
quite dangerous to actually get to the
Mm.
school. And then other people were like, oh, I've just been in Miami. So it was kind of
Yeah.
a real mix of
Mm.
people in the classroom, and it was amazing
That
to
must have been quite
sort of.
a weird kind of dynamic to be involved in, or to
It's
be
bizarre
working
because
within.
normally
Yeah.
how do you relate to them? Like
It.
because
Yeah.
you're trying to be like, okay, let's do some pair work and
Oh
like let's
wow.
talk about what you do, your hobbies. And then some are like, well, I wakeboard, and the other one's like, well, I just go on TikTok or whatever on my
Mm.
phone, and it's like, why? Oh, because if I go outside, it's a bit dangerous, like,
Wow.
so it's really how do you get them to talk to each other and relate
Of
with
course.
each other because they don't understand each other's lives really. I mean, to some degree, yes, but at the same
You,
time, no.
they're coming at it from completely different perspectives, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah.
it literally, like there was one time where I was having my lunch and there were gunshots outside of the school.
Oh wow.
Like some guy was in a motel,
Mm.
or it was like I don't want to say it was a hotel, but it wasn't like a nice one. I didn't they call it a motel. I don't know why. Um, and I think he was a drug dealer or something, and then the police kind of were raiding the place, and then he was shooting back at them.
Oh
They
wow.
caught him eventually, but it's just like little things like that. No, it didn't happen all the time. It's not the most dangerous place in the world, but there were like there was some elements of danger if you went to the wrong street or
Of
something,
course. Yeah.
So, so yeah, I was teaching there for a while, and then when I made a video, um, students saw it because TikTok pushes it out locally, and
Of
then it kind
course.
of got a bit of virality, like
Mm.
I don't know, 100,000 maybe, and I was like, oh, this
Okay.
is quite nice. The
Yeah.
endorphins kicked in. I was like, oh, this is.
Yeah.
So then it just kind of snowballed from there, and I
Yeah.
quite liked it. So that's how
Wow.
it started.
Yeah.
Um,
And then it just escalated into this kind of, because you go on social media, any, kind of you research English or something, instant English comes up. So it just kind of just went from there, just into all the other
yeah,
platforms.
just Instagram, and I was worried that I make content on Instagram because other people will see it, and so I started making sort of pictures on Instagram.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you have the I don't know what you call them, the picture
Carousel? Is it
slides,
a carousel?
carousels.
Yeah. Look at me. See, there you go.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're the expert. I
Yeah.
mean, I have no
I'm really
idea.
not. I'm really not.
I just made some of those, and then it didn't really go too well. I mean, it was growing a little bit,
Yeah.
but it took a while. And then I was like, well, I'm just gonna repost the same video over, and I started doing that and took off. So I was worried that people would see it and be like, I've seen that video on TikTok, but then I realized people who have Instagram don't have TikTok, or people who have TikTok prefer TikTok than Instagram. So just repost everything. So now I just basically repost the short videos across TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube Shorts. And then the long videos of YouTube is what I sort of do differently on there. So
yeah, and I love those
really
videos, particularly where you you do the interviews and you talk to different people. Again, it's that really just creative approach to kind of presenting the English language and enjoying the English language.
The test ones, like the
Yeah, that's it.
yeah, just because for that one, like I'm doing that in Rio on Thursday. So I just feel with those ones, I was trying to think, how could I present vocabulary like batteries without it being boring? So I thought people are always curious about how their country is in terms of like what they are, or where they are in terms of their level of English, or other things as well, their football or whatever. So I said, okay, well maybe I can go to the country and test their level of English at the same time they're watching the video and they'll remember that person forgot what it's called. Again, it's all about story, right? So it's like they'll watch someone struggle to remember batteries. And then maybe they'll remember batteries because they remember the story of that person, like, oh, lixeira. I remember I did it in Sao Paulo 3 weeks ago, and some girls were struggling with, I think it was lixeira, batteries lixeira or something.
Right.
So, like, just, seeing them struggle helped me to remember the Portuguese word to some degree.
Yeah.
I think it's lixeira. But yeah. So, yeah, I'm rambling a bit, but
no, I get it. It's just, I really like the idea because it's just, I kind of understand the approach. It's just all about getting that connection in some way, so you remember, or your interest is sparked. And now there's one thing you mentioned earlier, and I thought I really do want to ask you about that. You said that you thought about screenwriting or something like that. I don't know anything about it, but I know I love movies. I love films. Was that because you're a lover of like stories in general, or just a lover of movies? Was that something that you always wanted to do, or?
Yeah, I think stories is a big thing for me. I'm not sure specifically like movies or anything, but I used to love writing short stories.
Right.
It was like fascinating for me to write something, to tell a story with fewer words.
Yeah.
There's a really famous like one sentence story, I think it's by Hemingway, where it's like baby shoes never worn I don't know, $10 or something.
Right.
And it kind of just that one sentence evokes a story like, what happened with the shoes? Why were they never worn? Whose shoes are, the kind of like, so I used to write short stories about like, I remember how I had one called Wench, which is basically about like this weird port little village. And it was kind of like basically this girl who was a bit loose with her, her lifestyle. So it was kind of like how everyone knows each other in these little places, and but people are still a little bit crazy at the same time. So just kind of creating a little story like that, but at the same time leaving stuff open to interpretation. Maybe this person knows this person and it's a little bit controversial and that kind of thing, without going into too much detail. But yeah, I used to quite like writing stories that were a bit edgy, but not explicit, and they would just kind of leave stuff open. So it's kind of like what I've always been interested in. And I still like now, like for example, Peep Show, my favorite TV series ever.
Oh right, yeah.
So like for me, that's just kind of like the perfect TV series because it's 30 minutes long. It's just obscure, stuff happens. It's a bit, silly at the same time. So that's kind of stuff I wanted to write, really, but maybe in a short story form.
Yeah, and I guess it's that idea, isn't it, of just, let's say they're probably the best writers, aren't they? They leave so much open to interpretation, And that is what kind of creates cult following on things, isn't it? You know, when people discuss it, they talk about it. And I think about, probably some of my favorite stories are the ones that actually there's so much you don't know and you come up with your own ideas. And that's what makes it so awesome.
Do you have a favorite TV series?
Favorite favorite TV series. I mean, probably I love the US Office. I know that's a really general kind of generic answer. I love the US Office, but from a British standpoint, I kind of grew up on the ones I love, Only Fools and Horses.
It's great, yeah.
Fawlty Towers is probably one of my favorites of all time because I do like comedy, but the thing I like about Fawlty Towers is the way each episode develops. Just slowly throughout the episode, it develops into absolute chaos. So probably more those styles. That's what I grew up on. Yeah, Only Fools and Horses was kind of my childhood. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. No, yeah, we used to watch that all the time.
Yeah, that's a good one. Only Fools is amazing. I tried to recommend it to students, but I think it's just a little bit too old for people to relate to nowadays. A lot of references that maybe are hard to get, you know, like when I watch, I need my dad to explain a couple of things. So it's like, okay.
Yeah.
You know.
I actually tried it with some students on a group class. I thought, because I love it. I don't know if you remember that scene where he kind of leans on the bar and he's like, just play it cool, trick. Then the guy opens the bar. I was trying to kind of explain the humor, but actually I realized you can't explain it. You can't really, you can't convey what it's.
You either get it or you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think that's probably. I'm trying to think of others that British kind of on that side of it. I've watched.
I love. What's the other one called? There's one where it's about politics and
the puppets.
Yeah. No, it's there's two Scottish guys who are like the spin doctors in the government, and then they have different politicians who make a lot of mistakes, and they have to like, what's it called?
I do vaguely remember. Yeah,
you'd have to cut this bit.
I can't remember the name
of the.
I do know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the name for the life of me. I think my brother watched that. Yeah, no, I cannot remember it.
The thick of it.
Oh, the thick of it.
So I think the thick of it is amazing as well. Like just stuff like that is so good. Thick of it. You also have the IT Crowd.
IT Crowd, yeah, absolutely brilliant.
I love the new ones from Ricky Gervais, like Derek and the other one where his wife dies. If you've seen that one,
I haven't seen it. No.
What's it called? God, terrible name.
Is it
Netflix?
Afterlife?
Afterlife.
Yeah, I've not seen it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Man, so good. It's like literally they make like somehow it's like the writing is so good in that you're crying, and then while you're crying they make you laugh, and you're like,
you've done it again.
How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah, how dare you relieve these emotions in me. I quite like I mean I love Rob Brydon, and I like Would I Lie to You. It's kind of more like a panel show. I don't know if you
so good.
With my favorite British comedian is Bob Mortimer. I love Bob Mortimer. For anyone watching or listening to this, I just encourage you just to go on YouTube and just look at Would I Lie to You, Bob Mortimer best bits. Because the way he can tell a story about nothing is just incredible.
Have you seen James Acaster on Would I Lie to You?
Oh, I love that man.
He's like, yeah, so good.
He's a genius
from him.
Yeah,
it's so good.
But it's all in the delivery. Yeah, so there's probably some watching and thinking, what are they talking about? But yeah, so just go check them out. I'll put them in the description. James Acaster, and I'll put all of the ones we've mentioned in the description. But yeah, and I guess storytelling. I guess that comes across in what you do, and it's is it something you would like to pursue in the future, kind of more, or just see what happens?
No, I think I quite like what I'm doing right now. Yeah. I would like to do more long, like I like to make longer videos.
Yeah.
Sort of, telling more. I don't know, like being able to maybe vlog more, but
Mm-hmm.
have it more structured, because I tried to do it before, like vlogging and teach something at the same time, and I found it to be incredibly hard. Like,
Yeah.
because you have to really plan it. It looks like, oh, just grab a camera and walk around, but for me, it doesn't really work like that. So you have to really plan everything and put a lot of pre-work into it. So that's something I would like to do when I get enough
When
views
you
that
get,
it's worth the time. So at the moment, it's
yeah.
not really. I'm trying to sort of make sure the IRO or the ROI, sorry,
Uh,
is
yeah, that's it. ROI, yeah, that's
return
it.
of investment. Because
That's it.
sometimes I
Yeah.
make a lot of the videos I make on YouTube, for example, I'm losing money on them. So it's like, but
Mm.
I like it. So
I guess it's with that
uh,
kind of, it's just getting the balance, isn't it? Between, of course, you've got to make your time worthwhile, but also if you're doing something you're enjoying and you're loving,
yeah,
there's that kind of that value to it. You know what I mean? It's but yeah,
yeah.
Chris.
But I just think sometimes I get carried away, so I have to make sure, like I can't. Sometimes there's some effects I want to use, and I have to send it off to an editor because I don't know how to do that
Oh
thing that I want
wow.
to do.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, maybe I should try and work it out myself. But then I spend 20 hours watching YouTube videos trying to
Yeah.
work it out, and it's not as good. And I still do it, but I think, oh, maybe I could have
Mm.
worked instead. I've lost, so I lose money from not working because I'm working on that video and things
It's
like that. So
I guess that loop when you're in the creative kind of world, that loop never ends, does it? I guess you're always
no,
kind of battling the two. But Chris, I don't want to take up too much of your time, mate. But that was I really enjoyed that discussion. Thank you for joining me.
no worries. Yeah, it was really
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're more than welcome, mate. Maybe we'll do it again sometime. And I wish you all the best. With continued success with what you're doing. It's great.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.